Hey, Wrong World Entertainment, and there's a new story doing the rounds, which one has done me, you're kind of like, I don't believe it, and then someone else chimed in, you're like, okay, maybe there's something to it. It's regarding Supergirl and test screenings, because there is a report that it has now held test screenings. Now, we don't know whether this is internal or not, but I would assume it was probably more so internal. Maybe not, but the reports are mostly positive, and there's new details on Lobo and the movie's villain that they're calling underwhelming. Which, how could it not be when its name is literally Yellow Hills? But let's dive into this, because this is interesting. Now, from what it's saying, it sounds very similar to the Superman thing, and this article even brings that up, but then tries to go, but Superman ended up with an 83 Rotten Tomatoes percentage. And it's like, Rotten Tomatoes means nothing, okay? Let's be clear about that. But it did force him back into reshoots, something James Gunn says he never does. But it's saying with Supergirl set to swoop into theaters next summer, it appears DC Studios has already started testing the movie. Similar to Superman, don't be surprised if a detailed plot outline eventually finds its way online, which will probably happen in the next few days or so. Here's the first part where you kind of go, yeah, I don't really take much stock into this. Daniel Richtman was first to report that test screenings took place yesterday. So there's where you're kind of going, oh God. Revealing that he's heard nothing but good things from several people. However, trailer and runtime leaker Cryptic 4K has brought us down to earth with a bump. So he says, yes, Supergirl had a test screening, the insider shared, roughly 2 hours and 5 minutes. From what I've heard, the feedback was not that great, but it wasn't a bad film. Some scenes shine a lot more than others. Millie is praised for her acting in the role. Lobo has 2 fights. The villain is underwhelming. So that's what he's heard. And as you can see, a lot more detail than what Daniel Richtman brought in by saying, I heard nothing but good things. Where this guy pretty much puts out like they were shown 2 hours and 5 minutes of the movie. They didn't say it was great, but they didn't say it was terrible. They said there was a few things that shined more than others. Lobo only has 2 fights and the villain was underwhelming. So he's given a lot more detail, which you kind of lean more into believing that one. So as you can see here, Superman also received mixed reviews from test screenings, but ultimately managed a score of 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, Tomato Meter, and won over fans in a big way. Sure it did. As always, it's best not to put too much stock into these early reactions, even if they obviously offer an idea of what to expect. I think that's hilarious that they're saying that when these articles put every piece of stock into what these reviews say, to the point that they literally just said you don't have to worry because Superman ended up scoring 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. Why should we care what it scored on Rotten Tomatoes? So continue saying, Lobo having 2 fight scenes is exciting, seeing as this is just his DC introduction. Unfortunately, Creme of the Yellow Hills being branded underwhelming doesn't come as a huge surprise when the old guard star Matthias, whatever the hell his second name is, has been tapped to play what looks like a very generic take on the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow villain, if the trailer was any indication. Now we're already seeing them backtrack and stuff they were saying because everything, it looks great, it's going to be fantastic, blah blah blah, and now they're saying it looks generic, this character does. By the way, he is meant to be the one in the trailer, I do believe, that kind of leads into the camera and he's kind of got all those weird little spot dot things on his face. That, I believe, is meant to be Creme of the Yellow Hills. But as for that runtime, we'd bet on it continuing to change in the months ahead, being good, not great, maybe be enough for Supergirl. Given how much the DCEU struggled, the news that Alcock seemingly steals the show is a big win too. So, yeah, look, even all of us here who are looked at that trailer and said, this trailer sucks, it looks terrible. Every one of us has still said she is great casting for the character of Supergirl. It's just unfortunate that they gave her one of the worst iterations of Supergirl. And like, for all the people going, but Tom King is the great. No, Tom King sucks. Tom King wrote one of the worst adaptations of Supergirl in the last few years. So much so that his run was cancelled. His units were next to nothing when they shipped to the shops, the comic shops that is. And yeah, the fans absolutely hate that version of Supergirl. So this idea that he's the authority on Supergirl, yeah, no, get the hell out of here with that. So it's sounding like this thing is a bit of a mess, and that it might be a bit too much of a mess. And don't forget, when they go for reshoots, that ups the price depending how long they go for. Yes, we always hear that the studios already put in money to cover the cost of reshoots. That's your standard reshoots. That's like your week to 2 weeks of reshoots. That's what that schedules it. Anything above that, you're adding money. And depending how much they have to change on this, because don't forget, you have to get the actors back, you have to get the locations back, get all the sets back, stuff like that. So it could run the costs way up on this thing. And yeah, it's just interesting that James Gunn says we are not shooting anything without a finished script and we know exactly what we're getting. And then what do we get? Superman ended up having to do reshoots. And now we're hearing that Supergirl, with these test screenings being kind of lukewarm to the movie, will probably have to go through reshoots. That's not a great start for them. Of course, then again saying Millie Alcock is great in the role. Yeah, we all were like, she's a great choice. The villain, there's going to be a lot of people going, Creme of the Yellow Hills. What the hell kind of name for a villain is that? And you're like, yeah, exactly. And then, of course, there's nothing really here about crypto and stuff. I know Gunn has come out to say something about how crypto is in this movie and how he's going to be different and stuff. Not judging by that trailer, James, because it looked like the exact same crypto we got in the last movie. Plus, I don't know why they're saying how he ends up with her. We know how he ends up with her. She arrived at the end of the other bloody movie to collect him. So that type of stuff is just stupid. So it is interesting. The runtime is interesting. And the other thing to keep in mind here as well is these are the type of test screenings where the visual effects and stuff aren't finished. As for them saying Lobo has 2 fights, as I said in one of the other videos I did about the movie, Lobo's not actually meant to be in this movie a hell of a lot. His screen time, if I remember them saying, was meant to be something like under 10 minutes or something, if even that. So yeah, it's not a surprise to hear he only has 2 fights, but at the same time, there will be people who will probably get pissed off that he's not going to be in it throughout the whole movie. Either way, test screenings do seem to have taken place. We'll wait to see if more news comes out, and of course, we will find out if these truly did happen when we start getting, plot details and where the whole plot leaks, because that's the next thing that always happens when they do these test screenings. Doesn't matter how many people you bring in, how many of them you make sign MDAs and shit, they always end up putting it on like Reddit or 4chan or something, the whole plot. So we'll find out exactly what to expect from this movie. So with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the hype button, you know the drill. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.